All right, laddies. Happy day 6 in National Poetry Month, and it's time for our first ode. What I'm going to need you to do, by the way, I'm going to send you an email on this. I need you to go to the topics page on the British Literature site for your class period, and go to topics under poetic devices, and you need to download the presentation on. It's called Ode to the Ode. And so just put it in presentation view and walk through it. It won't take you very long at all. But there are elements in there. I put quiz question to let you know what stuff you're going to have to memorize for the quiz tomorrow. And the quiz, of course, tomorrow will be over that and also this happy little poem. So just so that you know, today's Unpacking is brought to you by the Musgrave Pencil Company Tot 500. Look at that guy. That's what they use for little kids that are just learning how to handwrite and so forth. But it's a nice pencil, gets a nice sharp point. And so let's talk about Ode to the West Wind. Now look here. I'm only going to read the opening, probably the opening stanza front, from start to finish. I'm not going to read the entire poem, but I'll read parts as we go along. But so here we go with the opening, and then I'll tell you some things about it as we go along. Ode to the West Wind by Percy Shelley. O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing, yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence-stricken multitudes. O thou, whose chariotest to their dark wintry bed the winged seeds, where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow her clarion o'er the dreaming earth, and fill driving sweet buds like flocks to feed in air, with living hues and odors plain and hill. Wild spirit, which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, hear, oh hear. Okay, so a couple things should have jumped out at you as we do the thing that we always start with. You're going to notice an interesting pattern, and this is a new rhyme scheme that we haven't talked about yet. It's called Terza Rima. So here we go. Being, dead, fleeing, ABA, and then dead and red, so you'll see it as B, C, B, and then guess what? Thou and low, C, D, C, and then D, E, D, and then air, we're going to end with a couplet. Now, if I'm counting lines, and I hope you are, then you'll see that what we've got here is what looks like a sonnet, but it's a particular type of sonnet. So Shelley experimented in this particular type of ode, and you will read all about the type of ode that this is when you watch the presentation or look at the presentation. Terza Rima, let me go ahead and spell that for you. It is Terzarima. Here's a quiz question for you. This is also known as chain rhyme. Chain rhyme. Okay, Terza Rima, chain rhyme. Because what you've got is this ABA, BCB, CDC, DED, and then the couplet EE. Okay? Now, Terza Rima is generally also written in iambic pentameter. All right? So, there'll be some variation here because of all the exclamations that are occurring. O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn being. O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being. Okay, so you get to swallow that last syllable. Thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing, All right, yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence stricken multitudes, O thou who chariotest to their dark wintry bed, the winged seeds where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow her clarion o'er the dreaming earth and fill, driving sweet buds like flocks to feed in air, with living hues and odors plain and hill. Right? Wild spirit, which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, hear, oh, hear. Okay, so that's how you would. That's how I've marked it. Now, as I said, the primary metrical pattern for Terza Rima is iambic pentameter. So you need to write that down, because I guarantee I'm going to ask that question on the quiz. What is the general metrical pattern from an accentual syllabic standpoint? Remember, whenever you're talking about metrical feet, so iamb, trochee, spondy, anapest, dactyl, and all their kin, distant and otherwise, that's the accentual syllabic verse system. Accentual syllabic verse system. Okay? Most of these lines are 10 beats, and there's a little variation here and there, but for the most part, we're talking about 5 beats of iambic rhythm. Now, as you can see, the speaker here is just as wound up as he can be. And this is a good example of what, from a figurative device standpoint? It's apostrophe, right? Apostrophe, because he is talking to the wind. The wind can't respond, but you're going to find out when you are dealing with the various types of odes. Odes are generally either in celebration to or in commemoration of an event, or a person, could be living or dead, or someone or something that is not there or can't respond. Sounds familiar, right? Sounds like what basic apostrophe is as a figurative device. Now, let's take a look at some of the things in this. I'm probably going to deal with this stanza and the next stanza in this presentation, and then I'll go on to the next one. All right, so, O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being. So here we are with, right off the bat, we've got some images of decline, okay? Autumn is a season of decline. The leaves are turning colors, and they are, of course, dropping then from the trees, and depending on the tree we're talking about, they will change into various hues. As you probably know, in general, like a maple is going to go from yellow, orange, red. You're going to get that marvelous sort of range. I lived in New England for several years, and you would go up into the mountains on the Kangamangas Highway, and it was the people that drove it, they were called leaf peepers. Very excellent use of assonance there. But I mean, I grew up in East Tennessee, and so I saw the colors in the in the Smokies and so forth. But most of the trees up there are like oaks and things of that nature. You don't have that much in the way of maples. The colors are neon up in New England. I mean, it is absolutely stunning. So if you ever get a chance in the fall to go up to New England, especially in like New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, it is amazing. It's well worth your time. Okay, so remember, Terza Rima, chain rhyme. Apostrophe is your figurative device here because he is addressing the west wind. All right, now, one of the things that I would suggest you do is this. Look at all this this poem has a lot going on, okay, and many of the devices are present not only to provide the structural integrity that underpins the poem, but there's also a great deal of aesthetic quality. So if we take a look, for example, look at all this this alliteration, "Oh, wild west wind." All right, now let's say that you want to. So we know this is alliteration for sure, right? Okay. But we can also hear that there are other W sounds that make an appearance. For example, when you say the word "oh," the terminal part of that syllable is a W sound. Okay, so let's say that I wanted to circle that, the W, the W, the W, and then what about thou? Same thing. So if we were looking at alliteration, it's also consonants and all those W sounds. Thou, from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing. So here we are with a nice simile. So the leaves then are compared to ghosts, and so the enchanter, if we unpack that, the enchanter then is the west wind. All right, so we have a dual comparison being made. All right, now the leaves, yellow and black and pale and hectic red. So the hectic red here from your note tells you that that this is the sort of red of the like the fever, the febrile look of someone that's got tuberculosis. So this is something that that plagued Shelley. No pun intended there. It is worth your while to read the note. I know it's a long note, but one of the things that's worth mentioning there is the idea behind the word inspiration. So if Shelley and most poets are receiving inspiration from something that they've seen or whatever, and in the Jewish tradition, in the Judaic kind of community, the belief was that poets received their poetry directly from God, as though they were drawing in the idea from a divine being. Physiologically, the word inspiration refers to the process of drawing in air. Okay, so expiration, of course, is the blowing out of air. So there's this sense that the west wind here is providing him, as it has, with inspiration, an idea for a poem. And so this entire poem is just a sort of celebration, which is what odes are, a celebration of the power of this tremendous force in nature. Okay, all right. The winged seeds where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow her clarion o'er the dreaming earth and fill. Okay, now listen. What did I do for you today? I went out and I was rummaging around in nature. Okay, look here. These are the winged seeds that your boy is talking about. Now, what kind of trees do these come from? Maple, of course. Oaks use acorns to reproduce, but maples use these winged seeds. And so you've seen. So if you look at that image echo that he's talking about, each like a corpse within its grave. So look at it's like the dead body. So what was generally would happen with dead people is that they would be wrapped up in what's called a winding sheet. And then they would be put, say, in in a coffin or maybe in a grave. There's lots of image of death and dying and decline and all this sort of thing in this poem. Okay, but these three seeds are all from different cultivars of maple. Okay, this one right here is a sugar maple that came from a neighbor's yard, and then these two smaller ones are from dwarf maples. These are sort of Japanese cultivars, and these are two different types. Okay, so there's your visual show and tell for the day. You're welcome. And who among us has not picked these things up and flung them into the air to see them helicopter down in such beautiful fashion? I certainly do that all the time. Okay, so each like a corpse within its grave. I may very well ask you to unpack the simile there. Lots of similes in this poem. Something else I want you to notice is this. Look at all the enjambed lines. All right. Here's one. Here's one. Here's one. Here's one. Okay, so within that 14-line first stanza, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 enjambed lines. Now, you might, of course, you are asking yourself, maybe you're not, but I'm going to tell you anyway, what's the effect of enjambed lines? Well, you are supposed to run from, with very little pause, the end of that line to the beginning of the first one. So the effect of this, I'm going to ask you this question, okay? What's the effect of the enjambed line? The effect of the enjambed line is that it gives it a breathless quality, which of course is appropriate because we're talking about what? We're talking about a wind blowing, and it's a wind that has the power not just to ruffle old Percy Shelley's hair and that of his wife Mary Shelley, who was the author of Frankenstein, but also this wind blows up waves and does all sorts of marvelous things. The warm wind from the twin sister of the west wind that's coming through in the autumn is the one that blows breath onto the land in the spring. This is exactly what Chaucer was talking about, if you'll recall, in the prologue. Okay, that wind coming in and giving life to everything, the warmness of the air. Okay, so thine azure sister of the spring. Okay, your note tells you that's the west wind that'll blow in the spring. Shall blow her clarion. So this is clarion, of course, is a what? It's a trumpet. It's a high, shrill trumpet. Don't be surprised if I ask you a question like that either. Or the dreaming earth, okay, because everything is in sort of hibernation mode, right, as happens in the winter. And fill driving sweet buds like flocks to feed in air. This is, almost an identical mirroring of what Chaucer was talking about in the prologue. Almost identical. Okay. With living hues and odors, plain and hill. So here, plain means flat, like the plains, okay? And then hill, this is the sense of it being contoured. So look at there's all these kinds of antithetical elements that play through the poem. Color contrasts and contrasts of hill and valley and the waves, the peaks of the waves and the troughs of the waves. It's all very marvelous. Wild spirit, which art moving everywhere. I'll say so. Look at this nice hyperbole here. Okay. Destroyer and preserver. So your note tells you this references the Hindu gods Shiva. In your book it says Siva. Okay. Shiva the destroyer and Vishnu the preserver. Hear, oh hear. Well, okay. So once again, apostrophe. All right, now. All right, so super quick. Thou on whose stream mid the steep sky's commotion, loose clouds like earth's decaying leaves are shed. All right, once again, you've got that simile, so I'm going to want you to unpack that, right? Loose clouds is going to be your tenor, yes? I'm going to underline that. Loose clouds like earth's decaying leaves. All right, and there's your vehicle. All right, beautiful. Our shed. So the clouds are like leaves, and then that makes what does that make the heaven into? Heaven and ocean, that makes them a tree, right? They're shedding leaves. Shook from the tangled boughs of heaven and ocean. So it's the idea that not only is the cloud up in the sky, okay, which is just a congregation of water vapor, right? But then as water evaporates from the surface of the ocean, it climbs up into the sky, becomes clouds, and then the clouds rain, and it's this marvelous, endless cycle. So think again about the cyclicality, images of cyclicality that also make an appearance in the poem. Okay? Angels of rain and lightning, there are spread, here's our enjambed lines again, on the blue surface of thine airy surge, like the bright hair uplifted from the head of some fierce Maenad. Okay, it's a female worshiper of Dionysus. Look again here, those enjambed lines. Okay, and notice also how marvelous this is. If anyone has ever been, like I was near a lightning strike, I was probably, 15 yards from some lightning that that whacked a tree in my backyard when I was a kid. And right before that lightning struck, boy, I mean, the hair on my head stood straight up. I mean, it was crazy because, of course, the air is filled with electricity. So you notice that marvelous image echo there, okay, of the lightning's electricity making the hair stand up, as he references here, okay? So of some fierce Maenad, even from the dim verge of the horizon to the zenith's height. Once again, look at those contrasts. The locks of the approaching storm. This is brilliant. Okay, so think of it. If you've ever seen a rainstorm coming in from across a flat area, okay, and the rain is coming down in what looks like sheets, right? But it looks like hair that's trailing from, if the cloud is now somebody's head, then the rain trailing down looks like hair. So it's a marvelous image there. Thou dirge of the dying year, to which this closing night, here's more enjambment, will be the dome of a vast sepulcher. Okay, so that image of decline here with the dying year. Okay, the sepulcher. Okay, what is a sepulcher? Well, it's a tomb, grave, kind of burial place. Okay, and then here we have the continues on, vaulted. You've heard of burial vault. Vaulted with all thy congregated might. Here's another enjambed line. Here's another enjambed line. So as we've gone on, 5 enjambed lines in the first stanza, 6 enjambed lines in the second stanza. Okay, all thy congregated might of vapors, okay, or clouds, from whose solid atmosphere black rain and fire and hail will burst. Oh, here, look at that. We know what that is, don't we? It is poly. Oops, forgot to move that over. My bad. There we go. I'm almost done with this vid, and then I'll turn you over to the next one. So that's polysyndeton, right? Which means that you've got those conjunctions. You know that the word syndetic means to join. So polysyndeton here means multiple joining components. So here we are. Oh here, as the way that we end this stanza, the way we ended the one before. Okay, so I'm going to end this video, and then we'll continue in part 2.